Hello Guardians, welcome back. This is Right Way Gaming bringing you another Destiny 2 video, and for the third day in a row we're going to be covering the raid. So today I'm going to be covering the final encounter, and when I say final encounter it's in two phases, similar to our Axis with Wrath of the Machine was. So rather than two separate videos I thought I'd get it done in one. So I'm going to start off by covering phase 1. This is probably the more complicated out of the two phases, if you ask me. The first one's more straightforward, it's just harder to get down basically. Anyways, phase 1, what have you got to do? Well, you're going to need 2 guardians up top to kill ads and a servitor that spawns. I'll get into that shortly. You're going to need 2 pairs of runners in 2s for running down below. So let me break down into what these teams are going to be doing. First team that's up top will be simply killing the ads to make it as easy as possible to manage when the 2 runners come back up, and they'll be killing a servitor. Now this servitor, it's all down to timing, so they'll kill the servitor at first to open the shields up for the 2 tunnels, or well 3 tunnels to open up for the runners to enter. Now once they've done that, the runners will go down and they'll find out which shapes they're looking for. And when I say this, basically there's 3 shapes. You've got circle, triangle and square. Them are the shapes they're going to be looking for. Once the 2 runners have found their shape, they'll basically shout it out and they're going to run around in a circle underground until they find that shape. They cannot basically hit the wrong shape, because if they do, it'll cause a wipe. So that's what they want to avoid. Now, what will happen as these runners are running around for these shapes, once they hit the first one, the cycle will reset, so the team up top will need to kill the second servitor that spawns in order to reset the shapes for the team to find the second lot of shapes. Now this is just basically a rinse repeat mechanic until the runners have found their shapes. They will then shout up top to kill the servitor to drop the shields so they can come out, and what that will do will cause some tanks on the outside to be spawnable. So the 2 designated runners basically will go and get those tanks. The other 2 that have been running with them, all they've been doing is killing ads for the runners, because while they're doing this, they're not really paying much attention to the ads because they've got to concentrate on the shapes. So the other 2 are just defending them from anything that can come down into the tunnels, such as the shanks and the dregs. On top of this, the 2 people running for the shapes, if they get too close to each other, that will basically cause them to almost wipe. It basically causes a debuff that you don't want. So the way we ran it was, they go down into opposite tunnels to the end of each other and they just run around almost following each other so that they don't ever encounter each other. If they end up running the opposite way to each other, they're going to run into each other and cause that debuff, and that's what you want to avoid. Once you've finished that running phase, the runners that get the tanks, all they need to do is go to the middle and they just need to unleash hell on the boss that's actually, he's almost curled up into like a little tank in the middle. You just need to unleash hell with him with the tanks, and once you've done enough damage, you might be able to do it in the first phase, you might not, you might have to repeat what we've just gone through. But either way, once that's done, you will trigger the second phase. So I will get into that next. Okay, so for phase 2, let's get into it. Well, it's not too different to what you've just done, apart from there's no shapes involved. It's pretty damn straightforward. So again, you're going to need 2 guardians defending the map, which again we're back onto the maps, and you're going to need 4 guardians running as 2 pairs of 2. So this sounds familiar. Yes, it's practically the same as what we did with the first encounter, apart from this time, rather than you constantly charging to escape, you're charging to be able to damage the boss. So here's how it works. You've got the map reader and the guy defending the map reader yet again. The map reader will call out where the saboteurs spawn with the orange triangle above him. That's how they know it's the right one. Again, similar to the first encounter that we explained 2 days ago. The first team, well, basically all 4 runners can go to this first saboteur at this point, because there's not another one that can be killed, so it just helps you kill him quicker. You get him down and 2 charges will drop. The map runner will then call out the first person to pick it up, saying either return to map or you're 1 and 4. I don't even know if you need to return to the map at this stage. I think pretty sure that all charges can just be deposited. So it will call out 1, 2, or 3. Now again, this is where you need to get familiar with the map locations. 1, 2, or 3 is basically 1 is straight to the back of the map, where behind the boss. From there you go clockwise. So 2 will be to the right of spawn, and 3 will be to the left of spawn. So it's 1, 2, 3 clockwise. Now, again, the map reader will call out the first person to pick up the charge. You'll say 1, 2, or 3, and then they'll run to that location and deposit the charge. He'll then say the same again for the second person to pick up the charge, and then they'll go and deposit that charge. Again, they'll get a debuff that means they can't pick up another charge for a minute, which means they're then on defense duties to go and kill the next saboteur, basically, for the next team. So then the next team picks up the next lot of charges, they go deposited next 2. It's basically a rinse and repeat of that 3 times in a row until you deposited 6 charges, and then you are going to be entering the DPS phase. So how do we start the DPS phase? Once 6 charges have been deposited in the locations, the last charge that gets deposited will enable you to spawn a tank. Yes, a tank again. So the last person that deposits spawns the tank, gets in the tank, but before he bothers to even try and shoot the boss, you need the 2 defending guardians to do a certain task. So what's this task? Well, basically it's going to be on the boss. There is like 6 glowing points on him, if that's what you want to call him. It's normally around his joints. So you've got 2 under his arms, 2 on his knees, 2 on his back. When the 2 on his back are shot, I think it releases another 1 or 2 that you have to shoot down. These weak points need to be shot out as soon as possible so that when the tank does spawn, you can damage him. If this isn't done, the tank can't damage him, which means that basically you can't start the DPS phase. So, if we consider that the weak points have been taken out, we usually use a sniper for this, by the way, guys. We can then get in the tank will drive towards the boss, he will shoot the boss, and that will trigger the DPS phase. And what it will do is it will open up a point on his chest where a servitor is inside of. So what do you do at this point? Well, it's simply spread out in either the building at the back or on the ground in front of it, and you're just going to get your whispers, your black spindles, whatever you want to call it, and you're just going to unload it into that servitor's eye. Now after a couple of seconds you will get a debuff on the left hand side of your screen that either begins with, I think it's A, C or P. Now you'll know that this is about to happen because what happens is the boss fires out a wave of light, and that is the trigger to this debuff. Now it's only a debuff if you're stood next to someone with a different debuff. So if you've got an A, you want to be on the left. If you've got a C, you want to be at the back, and if you've got a P, you want to be to the right. Now there'll only ever be 2 of each, so it's a case of finding the guardian with the same buff as you, so that if you stand next to each other, because you've got the same buff, you actually get a buff that empowers you, which means that you're doing almost 3 times the amount of damage. Now each time he cycles this phase, it means that you do even more damage if you're stood with that paired guardian. Now he'll do this 3 times in a DPS phase, which means you will need to change over with another guardian so that you don't tether each other, which is what happens when you stood in a circle with somebody that's got a different debuff. So if you're tethered, you know that you stood in the wrong place. Now, if it goes smoothly and you all end up stood in the right circles together with each other, you'll get the empowering buff from being paired, and it means you'll do probably about 200k per shot with your whisper. Now, is it possible to one phase him? Yes. Is it easier to do it that way? Possibly not, because of how much coordination it takes. You're spending a few seconds during the DPS phase just organising yourself. The easiest way we found to do it was to stand on the ground below where the vandals and the snipers couldn't get you as easily. Now, once you've done that and the boss stops the DPS phase, it's a case of simply rinsing and repeating the charges to get to the DPS phase again, Guardians. It took us a good few hours to get this down because it does take a lot of coordination, especially in the DPS phase. The charges are simple, the DPS phase is chaotic. So make sure you're coordinated and you know where to stand so that you're not interfering with each other and you're not getting tethered. That's my only advice I can give you on that one, Guardians, and that is the final encounter over and done with. Hope you've enjoyed watching this video, and I hope you found it helpful. If you did, hit that subscribe button and don't forget to hit that like button. I'll catch you next time, Guardians.